The pen in my pocket is heavier than a pen should be. And I'm counting the seconds on the lobby ticker as though I could bill the bank for my pulse. It's 2:13 p.m. on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Chicago wind pressing against the glass like a curious hand. A laminated sign says, "Please have 2 forms of ID ready." My brother is 3 strides away, pretending to scroll his phone, his thumb frozen on the same glossy loop of nothing. We are here to dissolve the last thing we still share, a joint account with our names braided on the checks like a promise we never learned to pronounce at the same time. The banker Nami hair in a precise bun. Navy suit with invisible lint has wheeled a cart with a portable stamp and a black box that says shredder like an omen. "We'll need signatures on 4 pages, she says. "Once the revocation is executed and notarized, we'll reverse any pending outgoing transfers within the legal window." Her vowels are neutral, the voice of process, the opposite of Thanksgiving. For all that shiny order, my brother stands like he owns the room. He likes to smile at women in uniforms. He gives his name as though hearing it will make them remember him later. He won't meet my eyes. He hasn't met my eyes since he pressed the little white name tag to my chest at dinner and read it out loud. "Hello, I'm accountable," he said, so pleased with himself the candles seemed to clap. He had crossed out my name and written a joke in black marker where my identity used to be. It took other people a moment to laugh. They did softly, because shame is a quick contagion and my brother is charming when he wants to be. Somewhere between the turkey and the pie, I became a line item. My reputation is cleaner than it sounds. But when you work and risk for a living, you learn that silence can default a person. I do due diligence for a mid-market private equity firm. I track paper until it tells the truth. And I'm here because my brother thinks our old account opened when we flipped a 2-flat together. Entitles him to float a story about me that erases my work and keeps the money where he can reach it. It doesn't. In the next minute, you'll see how a joke at a table turned into notarized revocation. A freeze code applied, a reversal executed, and a quiet public audit that moved the room until even the air felt new. By the door, a toddler presses a forehead to the glass, fog blooming like breath on a mirror. The heat is too high. The place smells faintly of printer ink and someone's winter wool. I sip water from the paper cone Naomi offered. The water tastes like a coin. My brother flicks his phone screen off. Finally. "We don't need to make this dramatic," he says. "Process is not a drama," I say. "It's a record." I lay out the folder I brought. Joint account agreement. The partnership deed for the rehab, canceled checks. A thumb drive labeled Q3 transfers. A certified letter still in its USPS jacket, 2 notary acknowledgments. And a page of wire references, neat as stitches. The folder makes a soft shush against the tempered wood. I don't raise my voice. I don't need to. A week ago, the room was different. Same wind outside. But inside my parents' dining room, the thermostat was set low to save money, and the oven made the air smell like butter and pomegranate glaze. My mother had made place cards on folded index cards because she likes order, even if it only lasts until the first joke arrives. I brought name tags because our uncle sometimes forgets names now. I had printed them like a tiny kindness. My brother arrived late, coat unbuttoned, eyes bright, and reached into the stack like he was the host of a game show. He stuck my tag on himself and then peeled it off, laughing when it tugged a hair. He wrote the word countable over my name with a flourish. "You're the one who counts everything," he said, performative grin. "Even the pie slices. It's cute." His wife, now ex-wife, flinched and then smoothed it into a smile. My aunt touched my wrist and murmured something about boys being boys. The phrase "a Mothaton blanket" dragged over a spill. My father folded his napkin with an engineer's precision. My mother said, "Don't start," and carried the gravy boat as if it were a baby. Everyone else made a noise that could pass for laughter because it was easier than choosing a side. The candles threw light like coin flips. The heat from the oven kept my cheeks warm, but my hands were cold. I removed the tag from my sweater and pressed it flat on the sideboard, the adhesive picking a thread from the knit-like proof. "Seems I don't own my name," I said softly, and the sentence felt like something placed in a drawer for later. When I stood to refill the water pitcher, I saw the second thing, the envelope. Not one of my mother's cream stationery ones, but a white letter-sized thing addressed to me in my brother's handwriting. Propped near the fruit bowl, anchored with a spare place card. A prop. I had a feeling about it the way you have a feeling about ice on a sidewalk before your foot finds it. He caught my eye and smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "I brought the paperwork you like." Paperwork you like? The words slid off the table like a knife. Not long after the toast, when everyone had decency fatigue, he mentioned the joint account, called it the rehab fund, and said he was glad we were all squared. I watched the fork trail gravy across his empty plate like a signature. I asked, neutral squared, how? He said something about us being even because he'd covered the permits last spring. That was the moment the air adjusted. You could feel the table do the math. I had the permits. He had made 3 withdrawals marked maint ADV, each in round numbers like a child's idea of money. People smiled because that's what people do before a thing turns into a thing. The oven clicked as it turned off. The house cooled a degree. His pen lay on the sideboard beside the name tags, uncapped. I recapped it. What people forget about stories is that they're filed somewhere. Even jokes. I ate my pie. I complimented the crust. I drove home with my windows cracked to let the butter smell out and the lake air in. And when I got to my apartment, I opened my laptop and pulled up our joint accounts audit trail. I don't have to guess. I track. At 9:17 p.m., I exported the Q3 ledger to CSV, sorted descending, and saw the pattern. 3 transfers to a checking account with a suffix I didn't recognize. Wire confirmations with consecutive IDs on 2 dates that were also the days he'd been helping his new girlfriend move. At 9:49 p.m., I emailed the bank's fraud address with the subject line request. Freeze code application joint account ending 4,821. Attaching the audit extract and citing paragraph 7B of our account agreement. Unilateral freeze in case of suspected unauthorized use. At 10:02 p.m., I filed a notice of dispute through the online portal, using the phrase transactions may be voidable as mistaken because I know the words that ring bells. At 10:18 p.m., I uploaded our partnership deed, which, buried in its practical paragraphs, includes a clause about all maintenance advances requiring written countersignature. He had forgotten. The clause had not. Process felt like a warm coat. I slept with the window cracked 2 inches and the radiator ticking like a clock. In the morning, I walked to the notary at the UPS store that opens early on Black Friday. The air outside knifing my cheeks, salt on the sidewalk making pale stars. The fluorescent lights were a little too blue. I drafted a short affidavit. I, Aisha Khan, co-holder of account ending 4,821. Do hereby attest that withdrawals of $3,000 on 0905, $2,500 on 10/16, and $1,500 on 11/10 were made without my consent. And that clause 3, one of the partnership deed dated 03/18 requires my countersignature. I signed. The notary stamped. I scanned it and sent it to the bank's escalations address with certification attached. Please acknowledge. When you give a process its nouns, it becomes a door you can open. By noon, Naomi emailed me back. Subject, refreeze code application authorized. Her message was precise. Freeze code FC19 has been applied. Pending outgoing transfers will be reversed if within window. Kindly schedule in branch appointment to execute joint account revocation. Bring 2 forms of ID, partnership deed, and any relevant correspondence. She ended with, "We are here to help." Respectfully, and respectfully reads like a handshake when it's from a bank. I also dialed a lawyer I use sometimes for vendor contracts, Leah Gold. I forwarded her the ledger and the deed. She sent back a 13-word sentence at 1:06 p.m. You're correct on 3. 1. Do not confront him yet. Let records speak. Later, she added 2 attachments, a form letter to request recordings. of customer service calls and an outline to request wire footage if needed. I printed both. Ink hummed warm plastic smell in my small kitchen. My kettle clicked off and the sound felt like a gavel, small but final. At 3:33 p.m., the flood I expected found me, my brother, texting from sentences that weren't his. "You freezing the account is insane," he wrote. "You can't just reverse payments?" He likes to use insane when rules deny him. I replied with a screenshot of the clause and a one-line note. "We can unwind anything that didn't comply. I don't argue, I cite." When I arrived at my parents' house again to collect a forgotten casserole dish, my mother met me on the porch in her cardigan over cardigan because she layers when she's anxious. She asked me to keep things nice. I said I'm being nice, and she looked at the folder under my arm like a weapon. Sometimes, to people who mistake quiet for consent, a well-organized folder is a threat. Back in the lobby now, Naomi slides us the revocation packet. For signatures, yes? Plus a form where we both confirm our mailing addresses and initial the indemnity paragraphs. I read each one, not because I don't trust her, but because I don't outsource the ownership of my name. My brother signs with a flourish that looks like a seagull over choppy waves. I sign in a steady print. Naomi tells us we can elect who retains the account number and who gets a new one. I choose neither. "Close and issue us to new accounts," I say. "Legacy number should not follow either of us." She nods. He breaks first. "You're making them think I'm a thief," he says. The lobby for a second becoming a dining room with strangers. "You're making them think you can't be trusted," I answer, "because pronouns are a mirror. I never asked you to trust me with your name." A woman in a parka brushes past, trailing cold air and the smell of rain about to happen. The winter light is the kind that turns chrome to pewter. Naomi taps where she wants us to initial. Her calm is a kind of heat lamp. It keeps the necessary things warm. What no one knew at Thanksgiving was that my brother had rehearsed a line, squared, and papered it over his own ledger. But what he didn't understand is that I had rehearsed something else. I had rehearsed being patient. That's the thing about a cold open. Everyone thinks it's the scene. It's not. It's the temperature check. My history with him is a drawer of small weather reports. When we were kids, he'd borrow my pens and return them empty. When we started the rehab, he offered charisma, and I offered structure. And both are valuable until one tries to pretend it is the other. He would promise drywall by Friday. Drywall arrived the next Wednesday, and he smiled like a man who'd performed a miracle. I handled permits, inspections, lien waivers. He handled the contractor relationships and most of the photos that made us look like a team. In the major heist of our 20s time, we were complicit in different ways. He took it, I documented. There were red flags, but they looked like napkins folded just so. He'd call me the spreadsheet when we were out, a joke that sticks to a person like burrs. He'd cut deals on text and then act surprised when I asked for the PDF. He had a story about himself as a guy who makes things happen. I didn't want to be the villain in his story, so I let a few things pass. What I forgot is that when you let something pass, it learns the root. I made a vow in my kitchen with the kettle and the scent of burnt sugar from the pie. Dish I hadn't soaked yet, I won't shout. I'll use process and receipts. I'll let a bank stamp do what a raised voice can't. I'll pick nouns that make doors. I tucked my vow into the folder with the thumb drive, and it felt like adding a lock to a lock. The first person who validated that vow was not Leah, not Naomi, not even me. It was the night guard at the rehab building. A man named Rico who always sees things because he has the keys to where people forget to look. He adds time to light. When I stopped by the following morning to retrieve some mail, he mentioned he'd seen my brother taking boxes out late one evening in October. Not our usual contractor code, he said, his voice neutral like good wood. He used a temporary access that expired the next day. He wrote the temporary code on a pink memo slip. I photographed it. Later, that code would line up with one of the round number transfers. Evidence becomes geometry if you line enough points. The second validator was an email. Subject reversal confirmed and coming. The bank had reversed the November withdrawal. The other two were outside the window, but flagged. The flagged ones will always be someone's future regret. My job is to make sure they aren't mine. The third was the restaurant manager from Thanksgiving, Anita, whom my mother had employed to help with rental dinnerware and heating trays because our extended family had outgrown our cupboards. Anita called to say she found a place card under the sideboard with my name tag stuck to it. The adhesive, now a bald circle. She laughed gently when she told me the sympathy disguised as a joke. "We save leftovers," she said. "Do you want the name tag back?" I said no and yes, and then asked if she had by any chance saved any of the interior security footage from the hall camera where guests hung their coats. She did. She sent a still, time-stamped, 6:52 p.m., my brother placing the white envelope near the fruit bowl. It wasn't exactly a crime, but a placement can be an argument. The photo showed his hand and the deliberate angle of the paper. If you make a stage, someone will act on it. The sealed document that arrived was not from him, but from the city's permit office. Records request I had filed months ago, and bound in gray cardstock like a small apologia. Inside were stamped dates that showed I had paid for permits through our business account, not the joint account he was trying to settle against. Dates and stamps are small, miraculous anchors. They keep frustrating stories from drifting wherever a charm buoy points. When we widened the net, it was not to punish but to sweep in the facts that had been just outside the frame. I copied our accountant, a patient man named Dev, with kind eyes, who speaks 4 languages and treats QuickBooks like a fifth on a memo summarizing the disputed transactions. He responded with a 2-line email and an attachment. "Per your deed, advances require dual authorization. I've attached the signed management letter from March, which reiterates. CC Leah for counsel." The letter made a crisp sound when I printed it. Paper has weather. This was cool and slightly toothed. I sent a short letter by certified mail to my brother, as Leah advised. It said, "Please consider this a formal request. Cease representing maintenance advances as settled from the joint account. Until revocation is executed, no further withdrawals will be permitted. See Clause 3. 1. All statements asserting we are squared are inaccurate. Kindly correct." The letter wasn't to persuade him. It was to leave a trail he could not later wish away. You cannot wish away green USPS slips. They sit there in a drawer with the rope of their tracking numbers and wait. While I waited for the revocation appointment, I opened my small safe and removed a ring that had been my grandmother's. Not because I needed jewelry, but because objects have their own clocks. She once told me the ring was made from part of a silver coin my great-grandfather had pressed flat in a vise and then shaped with his hands. "When men think they own the doors," she said in Urdu, pressing the cold metal to my palm, "women learn the locks." I wore it to the bank. It felt like both a key and a seal. Naomi returns with a notary, a petite woman with a fountain pen. The lobby's HVAC hums. Outside, a bus breathes at the curb. Naomi explains the last portion, a release from future liability for transactions post-revocation. My brother sighs theatrically. "Do you rehearse these speeches?" he asks. "We practice accuracy," she says. I like her. This is the place where, in lesser stories, people melt down. They throw voices instead of facts. I don't melt. Metals are tempered for a reason. I asked Naomi to produce the call recordings from the customer service line, where my brother tried to argue against the freeze. She looks surprised and then impressed. "We can request them," she says. "We'll certify the request now." She writes down the reference number. I write it too. Write it twice. Remember once? "You're turning this into a courtroom." My brother says, half laugh, half plea. "No," I say. "I'm turning it into a ledger." The difference is that a ledger isn't about winning. It's about exactness. He runs a hand through his hair, making it stand wrong for the first time this afternoon. He blames that freeze in a low voice and says he needed liquidity. That's the word men who want to be bankers use when they want permission. The toddler at the glass is now asleep, face turned to the window, fog a small cloud. The scent of someone's cinnamon gum jumps in the warm air, then vanishes. I don't want vengeance. Not really. Vengeance is unbillable. I want a world where a woman can bring a folder into a room and the folder is respected. I want a world where a name tag is not a weapon camouflaged as a joke. I want our mother to sleep. Public reckoning doesn't always need an audience, but this one has one. A Saturday lobby is an amphitheater of errands. When Naomi calls over her manager to countersign the revocation, we accidentally recruit more witnesses. A security guard with a patient stance. A man in a down vest translating something to his father in Punjabi. A woman with a stroller checking her watch. My brother lifts his chin, expecting to find the charm light that has always lit for him in rooms. It doesn't. Lights obey different switches in here. Naomi stamps. This sound is small thunder. She slides the executed revocation into a plastic sleeve and places it on the stack of things that are now true. I take a breath that tastes like electrolytes. My brother leans back in his chair the way you do when an era ends and you're still deciding which story to tell about it. We are almost done when he cannot help himself and does what men sometimes do when paper cornered. He tilts his head and says, "You owe me the permits," as if we hadn't already printed their stamps. He reaches for the white envelope he brought again today, his prop hand, opens it. To reveal 3 scribbled invoices from a man who isn't a contractor but plays one on weekends. The paper smells like cheap toner and last night's coffee. "See?" he says, like a magician revealing the world's saddest scarf. "Receipts," I say, and the word is not slang but a direction. I hand Naomi the city's stamped permit printouts dev's letter. The still that shows his placing the Thanksgiving envelope like a stage cue. Leah's counsel summary and the notarized affidavit. Naomi flips through them, angles them so her manager can see. He nods. The security guard's radio crackles and says nothing. The lobby is a classroom of adults who learn something without a desk. My brother tries again. He says, "Everyone knows your and stops," because at that moment I stop him with the thing I hadn't planned to use today. The call transcript from 10:56 a.m. yesterday, in which he told a customer service rep the joint accounts transfers were authorized by her verbally. I had requested the transcript early, and the bank's compliance team, quick on a slow weekend, had sent the text record. In it, he mispronounced my name to diminish me, but he said it often enough that it was clear who he meant. People forget compliance can be fast if you pick the right nouns. Naomi reads the transcript's key lines slowly. Her manager raises his eyebrows a millimeter. The sound of the stamp returns, a form of rain. "Reversals stand," she says, "and going forward, separate accounts only." He inhales as if to laugh, but the laugh arrives dead. I never knew a laugh could die partway out of a body. It sounds like a door closing on a gust. He sets his pen on the table harder than he intends to. The pen makes a small, angry click. He has a tell, and it is wait. "Seems I don't own my name," I say again. Not to him, but to the documents that now wear it better than I do. The sentence fits here differently, like a suit tailored overnight. It's not grief. It's a measurement. We leave the bank into a November afternoon that has gotten brighter and meaner. The wind is a professional. It leans. I walk with my hands in my coat pockets, and the ring my grandmother made presses a small crescent into my palm. The cold tastes like new coins. What happens after a public reckoning is not always interesting. That's what makes it valuable. I change passwords I should have changed earlier. Revoke access on the shared drive for the rehab photos. Remove him from the shared mailbox. And close the small business debit card that was linked to our no-closed account. I file a record of revocation with the county recorder because sometimes that extra layer saves an argument later. I send my mother a photo of the new account welcome letter, and she replies with a heart emoji, she means, and doesn't fully understand. I sleep. He texts less. When he does, he switches from fury to charm, like gears that need oil. He writes that I went nuclear. I reply with Leah's phrase, "I complied." He hints that I made him look bad to people who matter. I reply, "Documents matter." He complains that Dev is taking your side. I reply, Dev is taking the side of the letter he signed. He tries a joke. I don't feed it. The joke rolls away like a bottle cap under a fridge where I won't go fetch it. In small ripples, the city arranges itself around what happened. The contractor who used to call him first starts calling me. The supplier who always preferred cash moves on to another rehabber with a looser ledger. The night guard, Rico, nods at me when I visit to collect the last of our mail. He hands me a key card I forgot to return and says, "No rush." I drop the key card into a padded envelope addressed to the new tenants with a note. "Welcome. You have a good building." The washer runs hot. I sign it with my whole name spelled correctly. At a charity board meeting we both attend because family makes you. Overlap more than your good sense once I ask the treasurer to adopt dual authorization. 4 disbursements over $1,000. I present a short memo with 3 bullet points and citations to nonprofit best practices. The board votes yes in 3 minutes. My brother does not speak against it because he can't and not look like the thing. He says he isn't. That is the nicest thing I do for him all month. Anita, the restaurant manager, sends me a discount coupon for a rental set we won't need again because next year my parents will do something smaller. She includes a note that says, "I put your name tag in an envelope in case you wanted to keep it." No pressure. I pick up the envelope on an errand day when the light in the side street is weak and honest. I don't open it. I hold it like a lesson you pass in class because someone else needs it more. At work, I mentor a new analyst named Jay who thinks she has to apologize for asking for the files she needs. We walk through a diligence together. If someone won't send the contracts, I tell her, "You already have your answer." She laughs and then stops laughing because she realizes it isn't a joke. She begins sending precise follow-ups. The partners notice. Competence is contagious if you name it out loud. A week later, Leah calls to say the bank's compliance team has finished its review. My brother's disputed transfers are flagged. It's not reversed, but noted. That means no one can pretend they were clean. It means if he tries something like this again elsewhere, there'll be a whisper in a system somewhere that will make the next process faster. "You did what was available," Leah says. "You didn't set a fire. You turned on the lights." In the quiet after her call, I brew tea. The bag blooms in the cup like a time-lapse of a field. The apartment's heat hisses to life. I stand at the window and watch a neighbor. A young mother coax her stroller through a drift. Her face set in that mixture of practicality and future I'm beginning to recognize in women who decide to own their names. I raise my cup a millimeter, like a toast to her and to the ring that left a small crescent mark on my palm that morning, now fading. It looks like a comma. When the holidays circle back to my parents' house, there are no name tags. My uncle remembers everyone. He taps my wrist when he forgets, and I tell him softly like making tea. My mother sets out the same folding table, but fewer chairs. My brother comes and leaves early, and when he hugs our mother goodbye, he does it with 2 hands because the one-handed hug has been flagged in our family as what it is. A thing you do when you need to keep a hand free to steal something. We don't make a big deal out of this discovery. We make pie. Near desert, the doorbell rings. It's the courier with a padded mailer addressed to me, a replacement debit card for the account that is only mine. My father fetches his letter opener nickel-plated. A little dolent, I make a ceremony of it. I sign the back of the card, and from the living room my uncle says, "It's a good signature." And something in my chest that had been sitting on the edge of its chair sits down. Later, when I'm leaving, my mother stops me at the door and, in that hesitant way she has, asks if we are all right. She means me and my brother, but also me and the way rooms see me. "Yes," I say, because the question won't be held by a longer answer. On the stoop, the air is cold enough to chime. And the smell of someone's fireplace makes the sky taste like camp in the dark. I adjust my scarf and step down carefully because there's ice under the top layer of the snow. And even when you know the route, you look where you're going because confidence is not a boot. After New Year's, we end up in the same place once more. Not because we planned it, but because the city is a loop and families don't untangle. They reorganize. It's a community hall on the 15th floor of a building that believes in glass. There's a fundraiser for the literacy nonprofit my mother loves. The room smells like citrus and linen spray, orchestra off must speaker warm in the corners. My brother volunteers to speak because he likes a mic and a stage. He does his 5 minutes. Tells a story about our grandmother teaching him to read Urdu script with sugar sprinkled on the letters. And true. That was me, but truth is heavy on the tongue and he likes things that dissolve. When he steps off, I step on, because the host eyes me like a person they can hand a list to. I prefer paper to microphones, but sometimes you draft aloud. I thank donors. I cite 2 numbers like anchors. I tell a story not about myself, but about a young woman in our program who returned a book on time even though the bus was late and the snow was indifferent. She said, I read from the tiny note card that the stamp on the card was a promise she didn't want to break. The donors nod. A promise wears better than a joke. After he finds me by the window where the city looks like a circuit board. You made me look like a liar, he says, not loud, because microphones have taught him what volume can do to a face. I ask the room to look at paper. I say, paper did the rest. He watches the street below as if answers could be reverse imported from asphalt. He says we're still family, and for once I don't correct him or qualify or cite. We're still family, I agree, and family is why I don't let you make me smaller. I turn to leave and he reaches out, as if to grab my sleeve, then doesn't. His hand makes a fist in the air. Then let's go. A pantomime of a person putting something back where it belongs. It would be untrue to say he transforms. Mostly he adjusts, like a thermostat nudged by a hand that learned a new temperature. He texts me 3 months later to ask how to structure a deposit for his new account, so the bank doesn't hold the funds too long. I send him a PDF from the bank's site. He answers, thanks, then adds a meme he thinks makes him friendly. I respond with the word received. He sends a question mark. I don't elaborate. Boundaries can look like silence. That's all right. Silence can be a file name. What remains is the work of keeping my name clean and my folders ready. I make a ritual of it. On the first Sunday of each month, I sit at my table with a small candle, a pot of tea, and my laptop. I reconcile accounts, back up receipts, and check expiration dates for any shared access I once granted. The candle smells like orange peels and some spice that was expensive enough to make me hesitate at checkout and then buy it anyway. In the quiet, the radiator ticks. I breathe. I write down 3 nouns that matter this month: revocation, countersignature, witness. I practice saying them out loud because I like the feel of words that make rooms move. The ring leaves an imprint on my finger. I've stopped noticing. I carry a pen that writes even under pressure. I keep the white name tag in a clear sleeve at the back of my file, not because I need a reminder, but because sometimes an artifact is a system. If you keep one thing, you remember to keep the others. It doesn't have power. It has metadata. When a new analyst asks me how to survive a meeting where someone calls her sweetheart and then asks for the numbers, I tell her the story of a bank lobby and a bun-headed woman named Naomi who didn't confuse practiced for practiced. I say, write it down, stamp it, execute it. Put your name where it won't smudge. She nods. Then she does a thing with a spreadsheet that makes me grin. The city outside is a grid. It will meet you halfway if you line up the receipts. Last week, the night guard sent me a photo from his phone. The key card I'd mailed to the new tenants hung on a lanyard by their door. The plastic scratched, the code sticker half peeled. New kids, he wrote. They label things. I laughed alone in my kitchen, and the sound surprised me a little by how whole it felt. I made soup. The soup smelled like garlic and fairness. When I pass the bank now, I see the lobby as a small amphitheater where ordinary justice happens without anyone pretending it's a movie. Paper goes in, stamps go down. Names are worn the way they're meant to, be on the inside of a person's mouth. Smooth and exact. On the bus, a toddler presses a forehead to the glass and makes a moon. Someone is always pressing a forehead to the future like that. I hope when they pull back, their name is where they left it. Seems I don't own my name, I had said, and I was wrong. I do. I do, because I chose to own the processes that keep it from being taken. And I chose to walk into rooms carrying the weather I need. The smell of ink doesn't scare me anymore. It smells like mint to me now, sharp and clean. If the story reached you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that quiet can be a weapon and paper can be a shield. If you want more dignified justice stories, tell me another.